Again, good afternoon. Thanks for taking the time to join us, and we hope we'll find this useful and of benefit to yourself, your learners. My name is George Milliken. I work with the Digital Learning and Teaching team here at Education Scotland, and just on the slide here you can see our Twitter handle, which hopefully you're already following us, at Digital Learn Scot, and I've put my own handle on at the bottom here as well. I'm joined by my colleague, Julie.
Hi there, I'm Julie Jameson and I'm from the Literacy and English team at Education Scotland. So we've got our Twitter there, LEL Ed Scott, and that's the Literacy Twitter, and my own is Julie Jameson there as well. So thanks for joining us today.
Yep, and just 1 wee second. So we're hoping this goes a wee bit different from some of the other webinar sessions you might have joined us for. We're hoping it's a wee bit more interactive. And more of an opportunity to join in and share your thoughts and ideas as well as we go. So we want to focus on the Screen and Shots website and platform, partly because I think we both think it's an excellent resource. Made lots of use of it when I was in school, and a lot of our feedback from previous digital sessions that I've delivered on said that people were quite keen to see more of Screen and Shots. Just 1 wee second, just going to make sure. There's a few folks still got microphones on. I'm just going to make sure those are all off. So if you have just joined us, if you can make sure your microphone's off, that would help just to get a better recording quality. So in this session, we want to go through some principles of online learning that myself and my team have considered. We'll have a look at the Screen and Shots site. Julie will talk you through that and have a look at some practical demonstrations of how we can use those films to teach literacy, and how we can use the digital platforms and Glow to support that delivery. And then we'll have time at the end to have some discussion around some of the ideas, and again, great if you've used examples of this or any other thoughts about where people might go next with this, that'd be great to share. So I've taken these 5 points from the EEF, the Education Endowment Foundation, and on the left hand side there, you can see the points there. They've said these are the 5 main areas to consider in terms of online learning. I'm not going to get into it too much, because I've done that in previous webinars, and I will add a recording to these slides, which I can add as well. We'll share the slides at the end, so if you're taking notes or looking for links, we'll share the slides with you at the end of the session, and we'll put them in Digital Learn Scot and on Twitter, so you'll be able to access those as you need to. So teaching quality goes without saying. We get fantastic educators across Scotland, and I don't think anyone's having any challenges around the quality of their teaching. Perhaps it's more about how you maintain that high standard of teaching and learning that you had in your classroom, and how you keep that as high as you would in the class, how you do that online. So that's what we're going to hopefully give you some examples of today. In terms of access to technology, we can't support you with devices and network or anything else, but sometimes the access goes beyond that, and I've put a slide in which we'll talk to in a wee moment about some of the tools that we can use to support learners to access. And in fact, Julie and I were talking about it when we were planning this, that in fact using film for your text can also make it more accessible for some learners, or perhaps all learners, you could argue. So I'll show you some slides with some of the technology we can use to support our learners to access the learning. Peer interactions, we're going to use a tool called Jamboard, and I'll demonstrate it with OneNote as well, but those tools are interactive whiteboards, and again can maintain those peer interactions because our learners can access the same screen, and they can make notes, and they can share their thinking and their understanding. Overarching, I suppose, all of this is that we want learners to be able to work independently. Our team would be advocating a flipped learning model, where you're hopefully delivering instructional videos and resources for learners. They go away and carry out that independent learning. The film suits that again. They're not going to get stuck with certain words or not understanding what the author meant. Video can perhaps be more accessible for that. So we hope learners are able to go away and work more independently, and then perhaps it's you're using questioning, or you might have an online session with your learners and having a chat or a discussion. And as we return to schools, then that would hopefully turn into a blended learning model, where again you'd be able to ask your learners to watch a video, do some perhaps some lower order thinking around the video, and then when they're in the classroom with your support, then they would be able to develop some of those more higher order thinking skills perhaps. And again, just about different approaches. This is one way that we think you could teach this. There's lots of other ways. Again, if you want to share any of those at the end of the call, that would be fantastic for others to get those examples from you. But again, this isn't the answer. It's just one idea that we think was worth sharing with you. I don't know if you want to add anything else to that, Julie?
No, I think you summed up really well there.
Excellent, thank you. What I've also added as well is we delivered a series of webinars, myself and Julie and some of the others in the Literacy and English team at the end of last year, and we've some of the slides that we used for that. Julie put together loads of research, reading and ideas and information that are all really valuable, and I thought it was worth, again, just to share those slides with those links, because those might prove useful. In fact, they will prove useful for you. But if you want to have a look at them, there's a link to the slides, or you can scan that with your mobile device to jump straight to them. I spoke about access, so I've just put a link to some short videos here. Some of them are ours, some are from the providers themselves. Just instructional videos about the tools that you can use, some of them within Glow, some of them out with. The Immersive Reader and Dictate from Microsoft are part of the Glow package, so your learners can use that. Your local authority will have to have made read and write accessible through Glow. That will have to be turned on by your local authority, your Glow key contact if that isn't the case. And it just works slightly differently with the Google apps. But learners can talk by typing and they can have the screen read to them as well. My colleague Brian recently published a video on our Twitter and our YouTube channel you can find about screen readers to support learners. So there's lots built in, including on Microsoft Edge. That web browser has a built-in screen reader that's available to anyone using it. And again, with iPads, I've not put other mobile devices because it would depend on the manufacturer and the platform, probably Android, but that can be different between devices as well. But on the iPad, there's lots of tools that you can use there, probably available on other mobile devices too. And again, it's maybe not built into the app, but it's built into the device itself, and you can use those to make learning more accessible. So lots to have a look at there, and hopefully they support you. And the last wee part from me is just a quick, I won't show you a tour of the site just now, I'm sure you've seen it, we've had almost 1 million people visit the site this year, but if you haven't visited already, digilearn.scot, and there's support for just about anything you can think of. We're in the process of overhauling this learning path, so there'll be lots of new content there shortly, and again, any upcoming webinars will be there. And it's definitely worth having a look at the examples of sharing practice that other people from across Scotland have shared in the past year, how they've developed their own digital learning and teaching throughout this pandemic that we're in. So lots to go and find on Digital Learn Scot. Learning Paths get everything you need to know about digital learning and teaching, we think. Lots and lots of links to instructional videos and things there, so well worth checking that out. And again, I've put a link to our Digital Tools for Literacy and English playlist, which is on our YouTube channel, but you can follow that link to jump straight to it, and that is made up of some of the webinars that Julie and I delivered last year, and some bite-sized videos that we made to support those. So rather than watching a whole webinar, you can watch a 3 or 4 minute video about a particular part of the webinar. So those will hopefully help you with the digital learning and teaching.
Thanks, George. Oh, so as we start today, sorry, I've got an echo. Yes, so as we start today, this poster is available from Education Scotland to support reading strategies, and it works really well for film text as well, so it encourages you before reading, during reading and after reading to ask questions and to consider different elements of literacy. So where we have before, during and after reading, it works equally well for watching a text as well. So we'll cover things such as making predictions, taking notes, summarising, making connections, exploring the purpose of a text, asking questions. It's a really handy poster to have. You can just have it up on the wall, and just really helps you to consider with your children and young people how to explore a text together. As we move on to the next slide, we're going to be talking about just to revisit thinking skills. I know lots of you will be very familiar with thinking skills, but we just wanted to revisit it very quickly. So these go from the basic skills of remembering, understanding and applying information to the more complex skills, often referred to as the higher order thinking skills. So remembering skills at the bottom, they help us to find information. So we would be noting, listing, describing, naming, those sorts of things. And then we move on to understanding skills. And these help us to make sense of the information. So we'd be summarising, explaining, inferring, discussing. And then we move on to applying skills. And this allows us to use the information in a slightly different situation. So we'd be using, making a chart perhaps, a diagram or a drawing. And then we move on to those higher order skills. So analysing is where we interact with the information. We could be taking it apart, reorganising it, comparing, contrasting, etc. Then we have evaluating, and it helps us to critically examine the information and make some judgments so we can reflect, review, assess, argue even. And then creating allows us to use the information to create something new, designing, constructing, planning, etc. So what George is going to do now is he's going to take us